Welcome to the REALL Academy, brought to you each Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time by the
Systems DoctHers,
Dr. Sheka Houston and Dr. Tammy Taylor, best-selling authors, consultants, and speakers of Create and Educate LLC. Create and Educate LLC is an educational consultant and literary firm that provides professional development to schools and community. Their goal is to transform organizations with the REALL Resilient framework used to increase their school report card grades 2 and 3 grade levels in 1 year. REALL stands for Respect, Excellence, Accountability, Literacy, and Leadership. This framework is used to coach leaders and teachers and build student efficacy, while putting systems in place that aligns the work of the school improvement, making the process manageable. We get into the weeds of work with leaders through their TrustMate Institute that you should contact them about today by filling out the contact form on their website.
It's Super Saturday, everyone. Welcome to episode 190 of the REALL Academy, brought to you by Create and Educate with your very own Systems DoctHers, HERS. I am Dr. Sheka Houston.
And I am Dr. Tammy Taylor. Good morning, everybody, and welcome.
Yes, welcome. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Sheka.
So if this is your first time tuning in, we create experiences that educate so you can thrive through systematic processes using our REALL framework and formula.
Yes, we do this by teaching from our own lived experiences of raising our school report cards 2 and 3 levels in just a single year at the elementary and middle school levels, using the framework, which is rooted in research-based principles that we know work.
Most definitely. And we start that work with staff and audiences that we speak to, centering our message around belief. If you do not believe children can do great things, you will not hold them to high expectations. So for many staff members, they need to hear our "it's being done" message that includes our own story to get them motivated and empowered for the work. So if this is a message that your staff needs, along with the tools and the resources to be the next "it's being done" school, contact us today by filling out the Contact Us form on our website. So please like, share, subscribe, send the stars, comment, do all of the things that the platforms do to help us build these algorithms. Please and thank you.
Yes, thank you. Each one of our episodes every Saturday is a part of a live stream network, the Fantastic Four, beginning at 10 a.m. with Principal Sean Hurt. And then at 10:30, yours truly with Create and Educate in our REALL Academy. And then at 10:55, we have the Leaders Mentor and the GOAT, Principal Kafele, in the AP and New Principals Academy. And then on Sunday, we close that out with PGP Podcast with Dr. Mario Moreno and Principal Josh Tovar.
Most definitely. And if you tune in with us normally, you know that it is Real Fam shout out time. And so today, since we are pre-recorded because Tammy is at an event, we will do the shout outs through the comments. So even though we're pre-recorded, I'm live backstage putting your comments up to make sure that you can still see your comments. So still shout us out and say hello in the comments, and we'll make sure we're getting those up during the episode.
Please do shout us out, and I'll go back and look when we're done today, because I love seeing what you all have to say. We appreciate you all and the support that you give. And remember, Real Family, if we say something good during the episode that resonates with you, we want you to drop a mindset in the comments today.
Most definitely. So that brings us to episode 190 of the REAL Academy. Shifting the MTSS focus shifts the mindset. So if you have not heard of MTSS before, that stands for a multi-tiered system of support. And really what we're going to teach today will show you how we can shift for the mindset to be in the right mind frame to do that for students. But as any good teachers do, we are going to review, because we have been live with guests several weeks in a row for Black History Month and in honor of Women's History Month. So we're going to review some of the teaching through our framework and how they equate to 3 systems. So if you've tuned in with us before, you've seen the framework. It starts with respect, the door. That is the foundation. It leads to excellence, accountability, literacy, and leadership. And these parts of the framework, which are Create and Educate's 5 super strengths, forms 3 systems: systems of respect, systems of excellence, and systems of accountability, all attached to leadership. We show people how to access the framework by using our REAL systems formula. Whatever you're trying to accomplish starts with the messaging, because as we have said several episodes, we are in the people business before we are in any other business. So if your messaging is not right, you will not be able to activate the people you need to follow you, to buy into what you're trying to do. You won't build that trust. And then we show you how to take that and put your effective process in place by looking at who's going to do the what, when, and how. And that should give you your success measure. And anytime that you have something in place, you've got to refine it and make sure that it's really accomplishing what you would like to accomplish, but it's always room for improvement. So one of our previous episodes, we talked about, that show was It's All in the Messaging. So at Create and Educate, we do not believe in labeling students as tier 3 students or special needs students. That goes into that messaging. We have to get the mindset right by making sure the messaging is right. So we say and teach students who receive tier 3 services and special services. So that's important to know when we're looking at how we define the MTSS mindset. So it is that multi-tiered system of support for every student that starts with equitable access to tier 1 services in the areas of attendance, academics, social and emotional learning, and behavior. When it is a need is exhibited beyond tier 1, then intensities and extensions are provided to strengthen tier 1. So far, the way that MTSS has been taught to people is that it's a pipeline to refer students to special services, or usually that's where the process starts, to refer students to special services. That's what we would like to remove and reframe. So this focus now focuses on strengthening tier 1 instruction. So it removes that notion in your mind that all of this is about deficiencies in students, what's wrong with the student. This keeps the focus on what we are supposed to be doing anyway, which is the instruction. Getting rid of that old version of the MTSS diamond, the traditional one that you see that stands up as a pyramid. This one looks at it, makes you look at it differently. It's the Dodgeland MTSS diamond. And shout out to the interventionist who attended the Academic Alliance of South Carolina's workshop with us, where we received this information. So as you can see, tier 1 is in the middle, but intensities, if students need more or they haven't accessed it, what they need from tier 1, then you intensify the learning in tier 2. If they still don't get it, then you take it up another level and you intensify again, and that is tier 3 intensities. And then we also still have our extensions here, because a lot of times our honors and our GT students, learning is not extended for them. So if they quickly obtain that tier 1 instruction because they are honors or GT, then those extensions need to be in place. So tier 1 instruction through this model should be planned for every student to access the learning. And Tammy is going to kind of delve into what that really looks like.
Yeah, so as Sheka was just sharing, when we're talking about tier 1 instruction, and we're talking about students in general and who the students are that are receiving that instruction, we have to start thinking about things differently, because if we don't, and we really focus on tier 3 and MTSS being that pipeline to special education, we miss the entire concept of what the process really should be about. And until we reframe our thinking that all of the services that we provide should be specialized and special, we are going to continue to fail our kids. But what we want to frame your thinking on this morning, and what came from the information that was shared at the conference, is you really want to think about making sure that as a teacher in the classroom, we're providing all children with access to what's being taught. And what when Sheka and I were talking about it, it was she gave me the example that had been shared of a buffet. Now, I'm not a buffet person. That is not my thing, and we don't like buffets. However, buffets in this sense make perfect sense, because when you go to a buffet, there's a variety. Like there are things on the buffet that appeal to almost everyone in the room. So when you have all of those things on the buffet, that keeps the restaurant makes money from not having to be bothered with Tammy and making sure that she has her chicken wings cooked extra crispy. And this is the time where you can go and find what you need by way of what your forte is at the buffet. So in learning, what that looks like is a teacher presents the information that is being taught in the classroom. But what she has to do is, or he has to do is, you have to make sure that when you are creating these lessons, you're creating a lesson that allows there to be something for everyone. Everybody has to be able to get what they need. Just like in a food buffet, everybody's able to get what they want. Children have to be able to access what they need from what you're teaching. And for many of us, you can think about that in the sense of a choice board, and how teachers can vary what they are offering the students to do by making sure that they're tiering within that tier 1 instruction what the students need. So when you are creating a scenario and there is a fraction math lesson, you have decided when you're planning, and this requires effective planning, that I know that Sheka needs support with conversions. I already know this going into the lesson. So I have already created a situation within that lesson for Sheka to be able to access the learning she needs from, around, through activities that relate to conversions. Now, again, that looks differently from class to class, but that is what true differentiation looks like. when we're talking about differentiation, we're not talking about just creating a scenario where you are making this assignment the same assignment, but you're giving less work to students who you think are below where they need to be. You give an average amount of work to the students who we would consider to be our own grade level students, and then giving extra work to those students who we consider to be advanced or who need those extensions. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that the buffet makes sense. We can have a large number of items, and there you can go to a seafood buffet and there are hundreds of items on the buffet. You still, no matter what kind of buffet you're offering, whether it's food or if it's an academic buffet, in this particular metaphor analogy, we want you to think about it in the sense that you have to make sure that what's on your academic buffet makes sense for the people who are receiving that tier 1 instruction. So this goes against what some of us use in our schools for planning, when we are saying that every classroom has to look the same, and I expect you to be in the same place. If I come in your class, you're supposed to be doing the same thing that they're doing in the next class, and that's why that formula does not work. Now, can we stick to the same standards? Absolutely. But what that looks like from class to class, we have to offer flexibility and grace to teachers to trust that they know what the students in that classroom need, and that what that buffet is providing is what those students in that particular setting need.
Most definitely, Tammy. And I love the shift because and just like you said, it shifts the perspective of leadership as well. Just as we're talking about the shift in planning, I think now this gives teachers that notion that, well, they actually see the purpose of planning now, because before, when it was just about making sure we knew what the learning targets were, or making sure that certain things were in the lesson, that kind of just seemed like a checkbox thing. But now you're putting purpose around that planning, so now everyone sees, oh, it's almost like an epiphany is happening with the shift in the mindset. So if you don't intentionally plan for that, it won't go well.
It can't happen. No, and that's the thing. That's what I was going to say. Like you in your position, you're working with interventionists who this is their sole job. But when you are working in because what we're saying is there is only a handful of students who truly should be in that level of intervention. We really should be, most of what students are getting should be gotten through tier 1 instruction. But for us, like you were saying, with leadership, the mindset has to shift at the school level, but it also has to shift from a district perspective, state perspective. We have to think broader, because when you're thinking about like you said, and this is no disrespect or anything, but when the focus is just on checking the box to say, do you have your learning target posted? Teachers are going through this checklist of items to make sure they get their check mark. And sometimes that prevents them from spending the time they really need to delve down into differentiation and create a situation where, I need to make sure I find a story on Epic, because I know that for this particular standard and its point of view, I know that Sheka kind of struggles with point of view, and I know she's an 8th grader, but she's reading on a 3rd grade level. So I need to make sure that I have planned to accommodate Sheka in the classroom. I can't just wait for Sheka to get pulled out and that happen in the special ed class. So we've got to
Exactly.
shift our thinking more globally, like you said, so that
Mhm.
we're all on the same page.
Most definitely, because we know that 75% of a child's day, they are in tier one instruction. So if we are operating from the mindset of, oh, that's somebody else's responsibility, the special ed teacher going to get with him, or the interventionist is going to work with him, what we have not provided is access to tier one. The only thing that they do in those areas, and sometimes in the special education classroom, they may be focusing on something completely different from what is in tier one instruction. They could be
IEP
focusing on,
goals. That's what the
yeah,
point is. That's what they're
exactly.
supposed to be working on. And
Work-based
one of
learning.
the things that I have discovered, and this is one of the things that I love about leading the people that I lead.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the people who get this kind of work done are the people who say, I'll do whatever it takes to make
Exactly.
sure that my kids are getting what they need. I call my staff DWIS, do whatever it takes, because that's what they
Mm-hmm.
do. They do not mind getting in there and getting that work done. And we know when you come, especially when you serve in a community that is needy, when
Mm-hmm.
you serve children who you know have some deficits, there is no way around providing those opportunities for them to visit the buffet if
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get them ready for the next grade level of instruction.
Exactly. And so the other part of this, as leaders are preparing for next year, Principal Hurt is our data guru. When he comes and teaches about how you're looking at what that variability is that exists in your classrooms, when you're planning out what these classrooms are going to look like for teachers, or what these buffets that the teachers are going to be preparing for, you've got to make sure that the teacher ain't in the kitchen all day long. You know, the buffet don't need to be so extensive that the teacher is in there for 2 days making the buffet. So you've got to make sure that that variability is something that is maintainable for teachers. So schedule with intention. Look at who's actually in the classrooms for the teachers instead of just letting the scheduler, randomly schedule. I am against random scheduling, and we do that a lot at the secondary level. You have to plan with intention, and you all do a much better job of that, Tammy, at the elementary level.
Yeah, we do. I can say when it comes to the intentionality of things,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I'm privileged to work with some very intentional people
Mm-hmm.
who get good results. And I'm glad you brought to our attention, Sheka, the buffet can't be overwhelming.
No.
You've got so many, like I said, you can have 100 things on a seafood buffet. You don't need 100 things on an academic buffet. We need
No.
to get down to the meat and potatoes of what the standard is asking you to teach and figure out who's in the room, what
Mm-hmm.
they need. And that's how the intentional planning can begin.
Exactly. And so this gets rid of, a lot of times you'll see in schools that upside down triangle where more of your students are receiving tier three and tier two services than are ready to access tier one services. When you shift the mindset and shift how you plan and make sure that you're planning everything with intentionality, you should start to see a reverse in that upside down triangle, and it should be right side back up at some point. So we hope that this is something that you garnered something for, shifted your thinking so you can go back and shift your teacher's thinking. And we definitely appreciate you all being here with us on this Saturday. Any closing remarks, Tammy?
No, and thank you all for your patience with us having to record this morning. I am in training, and we did not want to not honor the commitment. We have learned that this work is important to us to make sure that we are there for you.
Most definitely. So please hop over to Principal Kafele's page next. Make sure you join Josh and Dr. Moreno on Sunday, and then right back here on Super Saturday, starting out with Principal Sean Hurt at 10 a.m. and yours truly, Create and Educate, at 10:30. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, everyone.
Happy Saturday. And if anybody's going to see Disney on Ice today, I may see you there later.
Have a great Saturday.